Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another podcast episode. Welcome back to another episode of Sit Down with Alex. Episode 6, I think. Yeah, awesome. Wow, look at me go. Um, I just want to, first of all, I just want to take this time and just thank you to whoever's watching this video. I want to take this time and just pray for you guys and just, just wish that you and your families and, and anybody that you ever are hold near and dear to your heart that are blessed, and that, whatever you guys go through mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, that you guys are always going to be with God, and God is always watching over you guys, and that the blood of Christ is showered upon you from head to toe, and just breaking the chains of Satan that are trying to weigh you down. All right. I pray for you guys. Thank you guys for watching this episode, and let's get into it. All right. Let's do it. We actually read our Bible, which is amazing, right? It's awesome. It's awesome freaking sauce. We have a lot of things to cover because, man, oh man, when I read this thing, immediate, like, holy schmoly, you feel me? It was just a bunch of stuff, and we got to read about Joseph the Dreamer, which is really cool. And then we got into a little bit of Moses. We got to read the story of Moses as well. When I say, the story about Joseph the Dreamer was was really interesting because in that story we get was Jacob and Enu. From the last time I read scripture, Jacob and Enu, right? So Jacob had a son. Jacob had many sons, but it says right here, he loved Joseph more than the others. He gave him a special coat, and his brothers began to hate him. Obviously, jealousy grew, right? But the thing was, he was able to interpret dreams, I guess. So one day his brothers decided to sell him, and they wanted to kill him, but instead of killing him, they decided to sell him in Egypt to like a pharaoh, right? And the pharaoh grew a liking to Joseph, and he kind of like adopted Joseph as a servant, but in a nice way. Joseph was living the life. He was living a lavish life. He was a prince basically to this pharaoh. But right here, while his master trusted him, his master's wife watched him with a different intention, obviously lusting over Joseph. She didn't want his help. She didn't want his help. She wanted his body. And so began a test of character that could cost Joseph everything, but not his faith. His faith was really strong. So obviously in here, it's telling me that the wife accused Joseph of something that he did not do. But, the pharaoh believed the wife instead of Joseph. So Joseph was thrown into prison, and from then on out, you could just tell where this is going. Now it says right here, inside the prison, Joseph interpreted a man's dreams, telling him he would die in 3 days, and it happened, and exactly as he said. Years later, when a pharaoh had a dream, no one could explain it. They finally remembered Joseph, and just like that, everything was about to change. So, like, again, in the beginning of this story, Joseph was a dream interpreter. Like, he was able to interpret these dreams, tell you what the meanings of the dreams were because of his faith, and he was connected to God, right? Later on, what Joseph told the pharaoh, right? Basically, the pharaoh's dream was 7 fat cows, 7 thin ones, 7 good eaters of grain, 7 empty ones. And then Joseph said, 7 years of plenty will come, followed by 7 years of famine. God is warning you. Choose a wise man to prepare for it. And what happened? Well, it happened. Years later, the famine spread beyond Egypt. Joseph's brother came to buy grain and bowed before him, just like in his dream, right? And then, they don't remember who his brother was. But, I'm sorry, I skipped over a really important part here. But it says, with the help of Joseph, Pharaoh was able to survive the years of famine and made Joseph the most powerful man in Egypt, second only to the king, right? So, and then after this is when Joseph's brothers came to buy some grain and stuff like that. And then it goes from here to say Joseph tested them first to see if their heart had changed. And when he saw their love for one another, He couldn't hold it in any longer, and then ended up telling him that, hey, I'm your brother, blah 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 blah. And later, father and son were together again, and the dream had come true, and the family was whole again. Now, what does that mean? It's a very good question. I wrote some couple notes down about this, right? And Joseph the Dreamer talks about mostly about trusting in God's plan, but trusting in God's plan, like we talked about in my last a couple of episodes ago. I think it was my first one, or I'm not sure, but we talk about trusting into God's plan. We need to just have like that trust with God to be like, you know what, like things are not going my way, but I'm gonna trust in you, and I'm gonna keep doing this and stuff like that. But the main thing we're talking about here in this aspect is faith. How can we trust God? Well, let's phrase it like this. How can we trust in God's plan if our faith isn't at the same level as trusting in God's plan? What if our faith isn't all the way up there? Then we're not really trusting into God's plan. We're second guessing everything. And it's making it harder for us to see the end goal of what God wants us to do. And I think reading that really helped me kind of unlock a lot of things. It's a big eye opener, truly. If you're out there right now saying to yourself, hey, I pray. I give I'm saying I give my life to the Lord and stuff like that, but you're trusting into God's plan, but your faith isn't there. Your faith is in somewhere else. You're not really putting your faith into it. The faith of you really believing that He is going to help you and He is going to be there for you. Even in the ups and downs, He's still going to be there for you. You have faith that He's got your back. If that faith isn't there, then I feel like that's where that little crack is when the devil could come in and sweep in and kind of change your perspective on things and then make your faith diminish. That's when it goes to be like, oh my God, Satan could be like, you see that little crack that I see that, oh yeah, you're saying you're trusting into God's plan. You're saying into this and that and this and the third, but that little crack is all he needs. This is just what I think, but I feel like that's how it is. I feel like that's how Satan tries to get you, man. I feel like that's how Satan tries to get, like, to trick you and to make that faith diminish even more to the point where it goes to, man, I trusted into God's plan and I did this and I did that and, and nothing. And then you stop believing. Then you start going back to your evil ways. You start thinking bad thoughts. You start thinking, what's the point of this? It could go to the point of, being self-harming yourself and stuff like that. You cannot let that happen, because what this story tells us is that his faith in God, all right? Faith in God. Story was never about Egypt. It was about trusting in God. Right? So this whole story right here wasn't just about, yes, I was the favorite son. Yes, I got sent to Egypt. Yes, no. The main purpose was he loved God. He trusted God. He put his faith was so into God, right? So let me say it again. Story was never about Egypt. It was about trusting in God. Even when things don't make sense, right? And believing that so it says, and believing that what others meant for evil, God will always use for good. Now, goodness gracious. Can I have not said it any better right here? This is about trusting God, right? Putting your full faith, putting your full soul, giving it up, right? You're giving up your soul. You're giving up, you're looking up and saying, I give my life to you. I want you to take control. Why? Because I fully trust you. Even when things are not making sense, even when things are not looking as great, you still have to trust that process. Cannot let your faith diminish when things aren't going your way. Now, I have gone through a lot of stuff in my life. I've lost a lot of people that I loved, and I lost a lot of friends, and I lost a lot, a relationship that I thought was going to be the one. And there's so many things in my life, right, that I feel like were ups and then downs, and there was a lot of downs. I lost my grandfather, who I loved very much. I lost my grandmother, who I loved very much. It's just stuff that we cannot control, and it's stuff that to us, when I lost them, it just didn't make sense. Why? It's a question of, why did you take that away from me? And then you get frustrated, and then your faith starts to diminish. And that happened to me. It did. It happened to me because then at that time, when I lost the people that I loved, I thought, well, at least I still have this girl in my life who will keep me, company, will keep me sane, stuff like that. But it was for the wrong reasons. All right. It wasn't a relationship based on God. It was not. It was just a relationship based on sex, based on just euphoric things that we're going to do to with each other. And just like that got taken away as well. Everything was going down right there. And to the point where I thought, what is even the point of being here if everything is not going to go my way? I try to believe in God, right? And I told you guys before this, I myself was like, I always, even when I did the bad things in life, I always thought, this is still wrong. I still did it anyway. I still want to go out and drink. I still want to go have sex with these girls, right? Faith got diminished and diminished little by little. You feel empty after doing that, after doing a lot, right? You start feeling alone. You start feeling the answers aren't adding up, right? And the one thing that I did not try to do was to put my faith into God. I'm this close to not being here. I was this close to not want. I just couldn't wrap my head around this. And I never spoke to anybody. Sorry, I hit them. That's not true. And this is the first time me saying it publicly, because now I'm in a better state of mind, right? But the one thing that I will say is this. I got really drunk one day, and to the point I don't remember. My mom told me this, right? And I was super, super drunk. Man. And little bits and pieces come because I think I thought it was a dream, but it turned out to be true. And then my mom told me that I got really plastered, came home, just cried in her arms and said that I didn't want to be here anymore. Everything came out that night. Didn't want to be here. I wanted to end it. And my mom looked at me and she was just holding me and just concerned for me. The next day she asked if I was okay, and I don't remember anything, right? Yeah. But then I started to remember, and I was like, wow, it was, And then over time, when things weren't going my way and when things just kept adding up, and then, the money wasn't there, and the bills were racking up, and then I was such in a horrible place in the state of mind, financially, physically, mentally, man. I think God to this. I don't know what it made me, want to do this, right? But I didn't go drink. I didn't do this. Instead, I opened up TikTok and I got interested in this, the Bible, and I started reading and I started getting more into it and thinking about it and stuff like that. And it's like a switch, So it's that switch. And I never looked back before, Now, other people have better testimonies than me, They have better stories and stuff like that, but this is just mine. And I would honestly say I never had an encounter with God or the Holy Spirit, but maybe I haven't. I just don't know it. But I'm in a better state of mind now. Ever since opening this book up right here has led me to just me being happy. And no matter what happens, I see things in a different light now. And I see things in a light that I never would have seen before, Me and my family aren't the richest or not the fanciest. But whenever I walk in through that door, every time I come home from work, it's a family that loves each other. And I sometimes take that for granted. I don't, I forget that there are a lot of people who aren't close with their own mother or father, who aren't close with their grandmother, their uncle, their stuff like that. I get to come home, right? And it's just full of love then the love we have for each other is something that I look at like this beats money any day of the week. And then it just makes me happy. Like it's just the faith that I have now has grown. And now it's just like those thoughts are gone. Those thoughts are not there anymore. And it's a weird thing, because every question that I have and every time I open up this book, the Bible, well, this is not the whole, it's a comic Bible, but still, it gives me answers. It gives me the answers that I need to hear and that God wants me to hear. And it's crazy. So that's just, and this is just the beginning of it, So when we go back to here, right, and it says, what others meant for evil, when the others are meant for evil, God will always use that for good. And I feel like even in the highs and lows, right, God's still going to be there for you no matter what. Trust me, no matter what. All right. And I have this thing written down right here. All right. And it goes like this. Joseph kept his faith in God through every rise and every fall. All right. Keep that in mind. He kept his faith in God every rise and every fall. This man was sold by his own brothers. They wanted to kill him, but they didn't kill him. They sold him, right, away for like 30 pieces of silver, which is crazy. And then, that fall, he kept his faith alive. He kept his faith good. Was sold, right, to a good Pharaoh, all right, a Pharaoh that cared, and ended up being in the lavish life. And but he still kept his humble things. And this guy was like, all right, cool. Then temptation tried to come in. The devil was like, you know what? I'm going to make you curse God out. I'm going to make you I'm going to make you, I'm going to try to diminish your faith so I could slip in and, take you out, right? Turn you away from God. So the wife of that Pharaoh tried to frame him for something that he didn't do, right? Boom. Now he's a prisoner. From living a lavish life to being a prisoner in a matter of seconds, but his faith still was high. And when your faith is still high, you find the things in the situation you're in, you still find the good in things. And I feel like right now I just cracked the code when it comes to that, right? It cracked the code because what others are meant for evil, God will always use for good. Whatever the devil tries to put what the devil is trying to put in your head, the evil stuff in your head, right? If you keep your faith alive and not give in to that, the God will always use it for good in the end. All right. Perfect example. Gone through a bad breakup, right? And you just think, man, I'm never gonna love again. I'm never gonna see the same. See every person to see him again and stuff like that. Like the little high school crush or whatever, like a little first high school girlfriend or middle school girlfriend, right? And you thought it would be the end of the world, but look at you now, older, wiser, right? That evil thing that happened to you was used for good. God always uses it for good, but now you're wiser now. You wake up and you're like, you know what? And you won now. You're in a better place of mind now. Peace of mind, sorry. And that's and I feel like that's where it's trying to get at here, all right? Moving forward from that, and I feel like God is like he just loves us to death, and we need to put our faith into him more. And if you are struggling to put your faith in him more, it's okay. Because what I'm about to share with you right now is something that I think a lot of men go through and it's not talked about enough, all right? We would go through Moses. Now, Moses, we all know Moses. I feel like if you were getting into scripture, getting into this, you know that Moses is the guy with the staff and splits the water in half, right? Wow, that was kind of a bar. Guy with the staff splits the water in half. I'm not a rapper though, but let's go back to serious mode now, right? Moses was a man who doubted his strength, feared his voice, and he questioned his worth, right? God was like, Moses, I want you to free the people of Egypt. I want you to be the leader and go out there and go to the Pharaoh and free your people. Moses, and I feel like every man goes through this. He doubted his own strength. He feared his voice. and question his worth. And if you're a man right now looking at this, quite who doubts his own strength, you know, you fear your own voice and you question your worth, you shouldn't. Okay? And that's the one thing I want you guys not to do. Do not, this could go from whoever's watching this, man, female, boy, girl, Never ever doubt your strength and never ever fear your voice and don't ever question your worth. You are meant to be here for a reason. God didn't choose Moses for his power. He chose him for his faith. Faith is the one thing that you need to truly have a relationship with God. If you want to have that big faith with him, and you'll get to talk to him. You'll have questions that need to be answered. You are worth living. You are worth being here. Okay. You are what he needs. Okay. If you guys don't know, we are all made out of the image of God. We're all beautiful in our own way. Don't doubt your strength. Never doubt your voice. Don't never question your worth. All right. This goes from boy, girl, whoever's watching this right now. If you're ever feeling like, you don't belong, you do belong. All right. And that's something that not everybody talks about, especially for a man these days. We are taught to keep our voices shut. We are taught to suppress our feelings, but we do feel stuff, and it's okay to. And I feel like this generation now is more of like, well, if you say how you feel, then, you're a wuss and you're this and that. And, oh my God, you have feelings. And, like you should not ever feel that way. And the one thing I'm going to say to that is that's a lie. Toughest man in the world could be tough in the outside, but inside, when he's alone, dark and inside his own room looking into the mirror, there are stuff that he does not like to talk about to other people, and that's what every person goes through. All right, we all have our own battles. And the one thing that helped me, I'm not trying to, and this is the one thing that I always say to people whenever we have a talk like this, whenever I meet new people, wherever, and anybody in general, it could be my own family, it could be this, I never ever in my life, I would never want to force this, my religion to them, my, Christianity to them. Why? Is because, well, it's just not, I feel like that's not the right way to do it. I feel like, yes, if I talk to them about it, I could plant a little seed in them for that seed to grow, their interest into it. And then in their own timing, in their own will, they will look into it as well. And they could get, and they could find comfort in that too, but I was a person who was at an all-time low. I never felt that way ever in my life. And I truly don't ever like to ever feel that ever again, but, I thank God to this day, I opened this up. I gained a little interest in it. I gave it a try. Man, I never looked back, and yes, even to this day, I go through stuff mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, but the faith that I have now is stronger than it was before. And I feel like the faith, and there'll be days, man, where my faith does get a little diminished. I lack a little motivation, but, I feel like once I walk in through that door and I just see my big family and I just see the laughing and I see the love, I just know that I'm meant to, it's something greater here than just, than just the money and the cars and stuff like that, the women and stuff like that. No, that faith that you have with Christ and God, man, you can't beat that. Faith took over fear. All right. So keep that in mind. Faith is going to take over your fear. With your faith, you will overcome the things that you want to overcome. Just have a little faith, man. All right. Don't let that go. Now, that's going to wrap up today's episode. And I feel like today's episode was a good one. And I feel like we touched a lot of hearts in there, Again, I just want to say that, it was a little touchy subject, but, it's just something that is not talked about enough. And just know that I love you and that you are loved and that we need you. Your story's not over yet, So what I want to end off with here is a verse, Joshua 1 through 9, I think, or 4. No, it's 9. And this verse is amazing and I think it should be shared. So check this out. Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid, for the Lord your God will be wherever you go. All right? I'm going to leave that with you guys. So please have that in your hearts and have that in your minds. Wherever you go, God is always going to be with you. And have faith in him because he will give you the strength to keep pushing forward. And I pray that whoever watches this video, I pray for your family, families. And I pray that you guys are just protected by God and the faith that you have just grows a little stronger. Doesn't hurt to just read a little bit about it, but I don't want to force you guys, but yeah, that's going to be today's episode. And I think today was a good one. And I'm super happy that I got to get this one out. Leave in the comments below if, you've been touched by it. If you have your own stories and stuff like that, don't be afraid. It's a safe space and we will never judge. And, we all go through our own stuff, but with God by your side and having a good strong faith in him, anything's possible. All right. Through the good and through the bad, I'm always going to be here with you. And so will God. And I will never judge you, just like how God would never judge you. Okay. Love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Stay cute. And I will see you guys in the next podcast. Later. Alligator.